You know that moment when your gut tells you something's wrong, but you try to convince yourself it's all in your head? That was me in the early 2000s. 2 little kids, a wife I trusted, and a marriage I thought was solid. Until I found out she wasn't just driving to her parents' house, she was driving straight into another man's arms. And when I tell you what I did next, let's just say she wasn't the only one who paid for it. If you've ever been lied to, betrayed by someone who swore they loved you, hit that like button. Because today's story is about catching a cheater, exposing a hypocrite, and watching karma hit harder than any courtroom could. Back in the early 2000s, I was just a regular guy, working full-time, raising 2 beautiful kids, ages 4 and 6, and trying to hold everything together, while my wife, let's call her Amy, worked part-time. Amy had always been close with her parents. They lived about an hour and a half away, and she'd visit every now and then. But then, she started going a lot, 2, 3 times a week. At first, I didn't think much of it. The kids love their grandparents, I told myself. She just needs a break. But then the stories stopped lining up. The kids would come home talking about Mommy's friend, or how they didn't see Grandma that day. Innocent stuff, but it didn't fit. And when I'd ask Amy where she'd been, she'd fumble, look away, change the subject. You ever watch someone lie, and it's like they're bad at it, but they're so sure you'll believe them? That was her. So one day I did something simple. I wrote down her car's mileage before she left, and when she got back, she'd driven an extra 130 miles. The next week, it was 400 more. My stomach sank. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to be wrong. But that little voice, the one whispering, "You already know the truth," it wouldn't shut up. Then, one morning, the universe handed me my answer. Amy left a sticky note on the desk, just sitting there by the computer. Her AOL password. I stared at it for a full minute. Every moral bone in my body screamed, "Don't do it." But then I thought about the lies, the missing miles, the way she'd smile when she got texts she wouldn't show me. So I logged in. And what I found? It shattered something inside me. Emails between her and her college best friend, giggling, gossiping, celebrating the fact that Amy was sleeping with one of her ex-boyfriends from high school. She called him Bob, said they'd been rekindling old sparks, even mocked his wife for letting herself go after kids. My hands were shaking as I read. That mix of rage, heartbreak, and disbelief. It's like your body doesn't know what to feel first. I printed every email, slid them into a folder, and hid it. Because now, it wasn't about emotions anymore. It was about evidence. I called a buddy of mine who was a cop, told him what was going on. He said, "You want the truth?" I know a guy, enter Ron, a private investigator, former cop, quiet voice, sharp eyes. The kind of guy who looked like he could find your secrets before you even knew you had them. I paid his retainer, handed him the emails, and waited. A week later, Ron called. "I've got her," he said. His report was brutal. Photos, timestamps, locations. Amy would drop the kids at her parents', meet up with Bob for lunch, and then check into a rundown motel for a few hours before heading back home, like nothing happened. Reading that report, I swear I could feel my heart physically hurting, but that pain turned into something sharper, something colder. Resolve. Because I'd seen what cheating did to families. My parents did it to each other, and it wrecked my childhood. I'd promised myself I'd never do that to my kids. But Amy already had, so I called a lawyer. We went over the plan, drafted the divorce papers, and started prepping. But before pulling the trigger, I had one more question for Ron. Can you find out more about Bob? And boy, did he. Turns out Bob was married, with 3 kids of his own. He worked as vice president of sales for a company his father-in-law owned. So yeah, he wasn't just a cheater. He was a fool living on borrowed privilege. That's when it hit me. Amy wasn't the only one who needed to face consequences. So I made 2 plans. Plan A, have Amy served with divorce papers. Plan B, make sure Bob's wife knew exactly what her husband was doing behind her back. The day came. Ron handed me multiple copies of his report, and I told him, "When she's served, go see Bob's wife." It was almost poetic. Same day, same hour. 2 cheaters, 2 homes, both hit with the truth like a wrecking ball. Amy got served at work, right in front of her coworkers. Meanwhile, Ron met Bob's wife, let's call her Karen. He showed her everything, photos, times, emails. Ron told me later that Karen didn't even cry at first. She just went quiet, like her brain was buffering reality. Then she thanked him and said, "He's going to regret this." And oh, did she mean it? Now here's the thing, Amy's cheating didn't really affect my divorce settlement much. It's a no-fault state. But for Bob, that man's life imploded. Karen didn't just confront him, she detonated him. She cleaned out their joint account, took the kids, and moved back in with her parents. Then she told her dad, the owner of the company where Bob worked, exactly what he'd done. The next day, Bob was fired. And since the house they lived in was owned by Karen's parents, guess what? Evicted. In a single week, the man lost his family, his job, and his home. But karma wasn't finished yet. Their divorce got ugly. Public court filings, police reports, restraining orders, the works. At one point, Bob showed up at the house trying to talk, and Karen's brother broke his nose. After that, there were criminal charges, probation, even a short stint in jail for violating a restraining order. And me? I didn't have to lift a finger. I just watched the dominoes fall. Every single one. People always ask, "Did you ever feel bad?" And honestly, not really. Because Bob and Amy didn't just betray their spouses, they betrayed their kids. They tore apart 2 families just to chase nostalgia and lust. Years later, I heard through the grapevine that Bob left the state. No social media, no trace. Meanwhile, Karen took over her dad's company after he retired. Talk about poetic justice. As for Amy and me, we finalized the divorce quietly. We stayed civil for the kids' sake, and that was it. Now that they're grown, I don't talk to her at all. No hate, no love, just nothing. She's the mother of my children, and that's where it begins and ends. I think about that day sometimes, the day she got served and Bob's whole world collapsed. It wasn't about revenge in the movie sense. It was about balance, about seeing the universe correct itself. Because sometimes you don't have to yell, you don't have to fight. You just have to hand people the truth and let their own lies burn them down. And that's exactly what happened. You know, pain changes people, but sometimes it also frees them. I didn't just lose a cheating wife. I lost the illusion of who she was, and that's something I'll always be grateful for. If this story gave you chills or made you believe in karma again, smash that like button. And tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying act of justice you've ever seen? Don't forget to subscribe for more stories where the bad guys finally get what's coming to them. Because in the end, the truth always wins.